Greetings from the Tulsa World OU Sports Extra team, where it is almost football time in Oklahoma. I'm Nate Feken, joined by Eric Bailey and Mason Young. We're gearing up for football season, and OU's home opener kickoff on Friday against the Temple Owls. Let's start some things off with a bit of breaking news coming out of camp today from Brent Venables. Mason.
Yeah, obviously some not so good news in that Brent Venables letting the media know today that Jayden Gibson, who it was reported last week had suffered a knee injury that was thought to be long-term. Brent Venables says he indeed is going to be out for the season, and that's just crushing. I mean, it's really tough, probably for Gibson, because he's a guy that had a really strong spring, was a really big-time deep threat for the Sooners last season and limited opportunities, and someone that a lot of people were predicting to win a starting job and have a big season. And so now you're looking at the wide receiver room, and yes, they're a man down, but you do still feel pretty good about what they've got. They've got Andrew Anthony working his way back from a knee injury. He could be ready, by the start of conference play. Jalil Farouk has already recovered from his spring foot injury. Looks really good in practice. And, Nick Anderson and Deion Burks are kind of the two most critically acclaimed receivers in the room right now. Burks was preseason All-SEC, and Anderson was on the Biletnikoff Award watch list. So still a lot to work with there, but it does probably open the door up for a guy like J.J. Hester, who is a kid from Tulsa that hasn't played much the last couple seasons, but might have a greater opportunity this season. And you were asking him, Eric, earlier how excited he is for that, and looks like he's really pumped up to be more of a contributor in the wake of Gibson's injury.
Sure, and that's pass catchers. What about pass throwers, Eric? I heard you got an update on that.
When you talk injuries, you're always one play away. So, you always don't want to bring it up. Knock on wood, OU fans. You never want an injury to happen. But what happens if something happens to Jackson Arnold? You got to look next man up. Michael Hawkins, Casey Thompson, those guys are looking to be second on the depth chart. There's a battle there. I asked Brent Venables about what would happen if you need a backup quarterback. He said both those quarterbacks are really looking good in camp. Both are really fighting for that number 2 job. We got to look at camp a little bit today. Got 20 minutes. And, of course, you can't read too much into what you see. But Michael Hawkins was getting the number 2 reps in the very, very limited 20 minutes we saw, which 10 minutes was stretching. Michael Hawkins was getting the number 2 reps. He does look good. He looks talented. Casey Thompson, of course, had a big old knee brace on. He's dealt with injuries at his past stops, but you can't overlook his experience. Brent Venables said Casey Thompson has looked good. Michael Hawkins, of course, a true freshman. He's going to make young mistakes. Can't overlook his talent, too, so we'll keep an eye on that. Jackson Arnold, though, of course, 5-star guy. He's going to go out there. He's going to get all the looks, getting all the number 1 reps. He's looked good in practice, Brent Venables has said. We're just 17 days away from game 1. A lot of work to do, but that number 2, that depth chart, we'll see how this plays out.
And pretty cool story with Case. He's the 3rd Thompson to wear crimson and cream at quarterback for that family. Very cool. Looking at the guys that put a lot of pressure on those quarterbacks, how about the defensive line? What are you seeing from them?
Yeah, Brent Venables was asked today if he's kind of narrowed in on what they're doing there with the defensive line, the rotations of that. Obviously, you got some really experienced guys leading the way in Dejon Terry at defensive tackle and Ethan Downs coming off the edge. But Brent Venables was quick to shout out some guys that have had some real offseason improvement, talking about Grayson Halton and also talking about Devon Sears. And the last time, actually, that the 3 of us were on here talking, we were talking about how good those 2 looked in the spring game with all the sacks that they racked up there in the scrimmage on Owen Field. And so, looking forward to getting it all out on the field and seeing what those guys actually look like. And it really looks like, too, based on what Brent Venables' season that said, that there's an opportunity for some young guys at the edge rusher position to really make some waves. Been a lot of off-season buzz about Tulsa's own Danny Okoye, the homeschool kid coming down to Norman from Tulsa, and he certainly looks the part from what we've seen in practice. He's someone Brent Venables said that will definitely, have a chance to contribute, as will Taylor Wine, who's a younger guy that's been getting his feet wet the past couple years. Both of those 2 young defensive ends that have had really good camps, Brent Venables said.
That's the front part of the defense. What's going on the back end, Eric?
The secondary is going to be big this year, and everyone talked about the experience and the growth in that position. Look at the cornerback spot. We're getting all kinds of good reports on Kenai Walker. Everyone talks about that's a guy that you got to keep an eye on. When we got a chance to talk to J.J. Hester, we asked him point blank, who's the cornerback that's giving you the most trouble? He mentioned Kenai Walker, so I think that's huge. So I think that's a good position. Gentry Williams is someone that we've always kept an eye on. There were reports that he kind of maybe got a little banged up at the scrimmage. That's someone that was J.J. Hester's high school teammate at Booker T. He was practicing today. We did see him in dressed out today at practice, so we'll keep an eye on him going through fall camp. But that's a position that's getting a little bit deep. Woody Washington's someone, of course, that we've always kept an eye on too. So I think Woody. Brent Venables was asked about versatility, and we've talked about it all camp, that he's someone that they can put at different spots. So the cornerback spot's deep, and that's something a few years ago they didn't have the depth. Now they have depth. They can move people around. I think that's going to be something that Brent Venables is going to be able to use to his. It's going to be a big asset. That's something that's going to be fun to watch. So this defense, they're going to keep this offense, kind of let this offense find itself, because you think first-year starting quarterback, offensive line that's new. Defense is going to have to keep them in games early as they find their footing going into SEC play.
That'll wrap things up from here in Norman. As we continue our coverage of fall camp, stay tuned to TulsaWorld.com for plenty of web coverage of the Sooners as they go forward. I am Nate Feken, joined by Eric Bailey, Mason Young. Stay locked in with us.